All right, good afternoon. Today, we're going to be talking about vouchers and we're going to talk about wait list. And I'm going to be providing some very important information that you're not going to get anywhere else. Okay. It's taken me quite a while to get this because it comes from Congress. It is underwritten by certain companies and that is distributed and also edited by the University of Harvard. Okay. Harvard University. And so it's pretty exciting news. So before we get into this, I want to make a few introductions. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com, and we make probably over the last decade, I made around 700 or 800 videos to educate people in Section 8 housing and so on. And that's because there's so little accurate information, okay? I've also included links to our company and so on. So this is not a tips and tricks video. I'm an actual consultant and I actually work with real HUD clients or anybody that deals with low-income housing, affordable housing, and Section 8 housing. So one thing I want to do is I want to go through some of the proprietary budgets. And the reason you guys are going to want to know this is I'm going to get rid of all the fluff and we're going to get directly to the point so you get the information you need, okay? To do so, I'm going to read a little bit to you guys and I ask that you bear with me. So, as it stands now, both the House and the Senate appropriation bills have included $26.2 billion to renew existing vouchers, but the House version will provide an additional $1.1 billion. Why is this amount important? Well, it's going to go to the number of vouchers that we're going to be dealing with this year. I'm also going to be disclosing the exact waste times for virtually every city in America. Why? Because I'll have directors' reports out of HUD and so on. And then that's going to better help you understand where you can get a voucher, but get it much quicker, and then initiate portability. That's something that virtually nobody in America has except for people that actually create the studies themselves. Moving on. So beyond that, with the current funding levels, that would create 100,000 additional households, affordable, safe, stable income. And since these vouchers are pretty important, I think the 25 billion is going to cover that. The Housing Voucher Program is the country's largest rental assistance program, helping roughly at current 2.3 million people afford homes of their choice in the market. Right now, most people are paying about 30% of their income, and then of course they're getting a coverage of about 70% based on the voucher or subsidies that they may have. Take a sip of coffee real quick here. I can tell you we're off to a bit of a rough start. And we'll introduce one of our co-actors here. She decided she wanted to be part of the video and was standing in front of some of the stuff I needed to read. So, all right, so right now, I think it was October 1st or 2nd when they issued the new FMRs, so that'd be fair market rates. And as many of you know, the fair market rates were issued as an adjustment to the pandemic, which means right now, all this funding that's going to be hitting the market allows for landlords for us to be able to match rents at a higher rate. So the FMRs are a really good indication per city, what they call FMR or SAMP, or small area market rents, as to whether or not the value of the voucher you receive would actually match the market out there. Okay. I see we've got a few people chiming in here. Brooklyn Nicole, good afternoon. Ms. Kasumi, good afternoon. Tamara, good afternoon. So with the new FMRs, I would say that we should take a look at that. And one thing I want to do with you guys real quick is I want to talk about the waiting list. And I'm going to pull this up real quick. And then I'm going to link it up to you. That way you'll have a direct access to the linkage. So I want to go over the average wait times for people for housing choice vouchers in the top 500 cities. I'm clearly not going to go over 500 cities. We'll talk about a few. And then from there, you'll be able to ascertain what's going to be best for you as far as applying. So you have Atlanta, Sandy Springs. The average wait time is 31 months. Boston's 22 months. Chicago's 19 months. Cincinnati's 27. Columbus is going to be 8 months. Dallas-Fort Worth is 8 months. Denver is 19 months. Fresno is 15 months. Biloxi is 21 months. Hartford is 22 months. Houston is 39 months. And one of the most egregious numbers I've ever seen is Indianapolis is 50 months. Jacksonville's at 34. Missouri is 59 months. And so as you can see, we're able to look at that. Now, additional thing I would like to go over, see if I can pull it up real quick. I'm going to go over states real quick. The reason that I'm going to indicate all the states is because this is going to help you figure out where housing authorities are quickly going to issue vouchers than others. Okay, so as of right now, as of current, the state of Texas is 21 months, Louisiana is 32 months, Mississippi is 30 months, Alabama is 60 months, state of Florida is 41 months, Georgia is 39, South Carolina is 20, North Carolina is 22, Virginia is 38 months, Maryland is 43 months. Delaware is 31 months. New York is 31 months. Maine is 26. Wisconsin is going to be 30. Michigan's 26. Ohio is 22. Pennsylvania is 23. Tennessee is 26. Arkansas is 15 months. Montana 31. Minnesota 22. Nebraska is 9 months. South Dakota is 14 months. North Dakota is 13 months. Kansas is 22. Oklahoma is 23. New Mexico is 22. Colorado is 17. Wyoming is going to be 22-month wait. Montana is 25. Idaho is 27. Utah is 30 months. Arizona is 26. California is 32. Nevada is 38. Oregon's 23. And finally, we have Washington at 25 months. So what does that mean? It means that if we pulled all those housing authorities together, the average wait times would be that. Those average wait times are for people with average cases that are unextraordinary, without preferences, without really being a senior and other factors. And when looking at that kind of information, and I'm going to issue that right now by a link, and you can also find this link in the description of the video. You're going to want to use this, okay? This is the type of information you're not that they're not going to publish and give to people, because the obvious outcome of you having this kind of metric and tool that is issued by Congress would suggest that people are going to go to states where they know there's a 6-month wait. You see my point? And then you have an obvious list of every city in America and their wait times. It gives you a pretty good tool. So we'll go ahead and issue that real quick. Here it is. What you're going to want to do is when you get on the website from there, and I want to say a quick shout out real quick to the folks that comprise this information. It's going to be the Center on Budget and Policy and the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And again, you can read a little bit more about that there. And Sonia Acosta is the person that was able to put all this information together. So you want to scroll down about halfway through the page, and you'll start seeing all the relevant information for wait times and lists. If you're a client of our company, then this spells out one thing that's very clear. Now you know what cities, you know what states and what cities have the shortest waiting times. And again, these are average times for average cases. So if you're 19 and you just graduated high school, and you're sitting there and you're working at Taco Bell and you believe that you're entitled to a voucher, then you're foolish, right? If you're a senior with a disability, or a non-senior, or a veteran, and so on, and you actually have a plausible reason to get these vouchers, then that average wait time would be much shorter for you. I strongly advise you guys to utilize this as a tool to go out and apply, okay? Let's be clear about something. A lot of people, oh, well, I live in Houston, Texas, and I can only get a voucher in my zip code, in my town, or in my county. That's not true. 30% of the housing authorities around America, okay, and this metric has been learned by my company, about 30% of the time they'll grant portability. So it wouldn't matter if you lived in Houston and you applied in Hawaii. If they're going to grant portability and allow you to move the voucher 30 days later without ever existing or living in that other place, that means you just addressed a really short waiting list with a good amount of preferences. And then you were able to take and say, thank you for your voucher in Hawaii. We're going to go ahead and move that to the city of Houston. Okay. Now, if that's not good information, I don't know what is. You know, I'm not an expert at fidget spinners. I do consulting work. And for obvious reasons, this information is probably some of the best you're going to get as of now. Moving on from that, I'm going to address a few more comments. Lewis, thank you for all the great information. VCAT, is this after you've been approved or after you sign up? Well, the statistical information is 100% accurate, and it is what you should anticipate when you go and apply. Sheila Neal, hello everybody, and hello to Sheila Neal. Michelle Jackson, hello from Connecticut. Thanks for joining us today from Connecticut. BCAT from Florida. Shout out to you guys out in Florida. Florida's a tough state, it's like California and New York. It's you don't always have a lot of available housing out there. JB, hello from Texas. So we get a native. And Tamara, I believe I'm saying that correctly. Is there a faster way to get accepted? The only fast way, there's only two methods on the planet really to get things faster. You can either do it yourself or you work with a company that can help you with it. And of course, when you have preferences, that does assist you. Let's talk about the world of vouchers now, because most of you are here because you want to understand more than just the shortest wait list is. Okay. 85% of all. So when a housing authority receives funds, it is first approved by Congress. Then it comes on down and it's issued to who? HUD. Then after HUD is the federal administrator of funds. It is not the housing authority. A lot of people think HUD is the housing authority. It's not. Now HUD determines how much each state gets. That allocation from the state then gets spread amongst the public housing authorities. Public housing authorities are in the big cities owned by the county, and have county employees, and some private. And smaller areas, public housing authorities are owned by private companies. Believe it or not. Now you see why things go so badly sometimes when you deal with a housing authority and you've got somebody talking to you sideways on the phone at a housing authority, and you don't understand why they're being so nasty. Well, they're there to make every nickel they can without giving any vouchers. You see the point? Now that housing authority has that, now they must keep 15%. Don't ever believe just because the housing authority has had that list closed for 8 years that they don't have vouchers. They have special use vouchers. That's what they keep 15% of their budget for. Special use is for a situation where situations come up. Maybe they've arrested a drug lord or something like that in the federal government, DOJ or some other federal agency needs a voucher for a person, or maybe the governor's office and other reasons. Most of those private use vouchers are coming through situations of referrals from the district attorney's office for people that may have suffered through domestic violence. Most cities have a small hospital that is not privately owned, that is funded by the county, and may be called the charity hospital or the free hospital or the hospital with the longest wait times, but it's a county-owned hospital. Those psychiatric services and medical doctors at that free county hospital or sliding scale hospital you have in your town can make direct referrals. And that could be to get a voucher when in fact that list is closed. Okay? A lot of my clients go, Jay, why are we applying at housing authorities that are obviously have been closed? Because they still have vouchers. You just do not have a fundamental understanding on how to compel them to get one of them. Okay? By referral, which is a sticky path. Did you know that a lot of people that have mental health issues and get locked up at the state-owned hospital, not a private hospital, but a hospital that's owned by the state or is county funded, means that the psychiatric services or releasing that inpatient person would be able to access and refer for a voucher. They cannot just put somebody out on the street, okay? But it only happens there. So there are lots of back doors to the system that you may not be aware. Now, I'm not telling anybody to go out and have a schizophrenic meltdown and go get yourself locked up 2 weeks at the mental health hospital that's owned by the county to get a voucher. I'm only suggesting there are lots of open windows to get vouchers when in fact there appears to be now a closed waiting list. I'm going to address a few more comments real quick. Ms. Kasumi says California in the house. Yeah, I tell you what, California is a big segment of the clients that I have. California represents nearly 60%. Now, what I'd like to do real quick is tell you about something that we're going to be addressing probably in the next 7 to 14 days in this channel. As many of you know, I work with landlords, and sometimes we're contacted by exceptionally large investment companies, mortgage companies, and so on, okay? Sometimes they're even multinationals. We have been contacted by one of the companies. We're currently in discussions with the VP there. They have 23 homes, 2,300 homes across 5 states. And I believe we're going to be entering in an agreement to lease those homes. Now, I cannot disclose the states or the counties in which they're going to be, but I will be fundamentally in control as to whether or not a person would be able to utilize their voucher to rent those homes. This is not some project-based housing, okay, where you go in the property and people are smoking crack and turning tricks. These are actual homes for lease, okay? And I would fundamentally be the maker or breakers to whether or not people get in there. And I've already suggested to that company that we will leverage the people that are on this channel, along with Instagram and TikTok and so on, to bring housing to people that otherwise have struggled to get jack from the housing authority. In other words, it allows you an opportunity to get reasonable and affordable housing. Many of you know that I am not going to engage in an agreement with a company where I believe that they're going to use me to exploit the average tenant. So that's where it becomes fair and reasonable. I am the moral balance for that. And so that's an exciting opportunity that I'm hoping to offer those of you that follow this channel and so on. And we'll see, So that allows you guys a home and a property. And for many of you that are going through ridiculous housing searches, have you ever considered taking the voucher that you own and possibly porting it to a different state? Maybe it's time for a fresh start. If all you can rent in the city of New York is a broom closet for an astronomical amount of money, then maybe that fixed income or social security check or disability check would be best served living somewhere else where things are reasonable and you had a reasonable opportunity to actually clear and get the properties. And I've already explained to this company that we're not going to hinge all the results on people with nutty credit scores, like you've got to have 830 and all that. And I've already told them that we should be able to expect that people are going to have credit problems and other issues. And that's why it's fair and reasonable, because it's not being managed by a bunch of morons at a maintenance company. It's being managed by, well, I'm not managing it, I'm just approving applications, but it's being managed by a person that fundamentally understands the struggles that people have to rent anything, if there's even anything available. Moving on to the comments here. Louis Mateus says, hello, and thank you. Our family out. We took our family out of Section 8 waiting list about 8 years ago in 2018, and they have reset the 10-year waiting time to 2022. Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. BCAT goes, where does permanent housing voucher get their funding? Well, all funding typically is at the federal level. Now, how that winds down there with permanent housing vouchers or permanent supportive housing is it would go through Congress, then HUD would disperse that to housing first programs, and that would be relegated down to the continuum of care. And that would be mostly through nonprofits and private businesses that would be assessing you under SBDAT and BOSS system, enter you in the HIMS system. And thus from there, they would be able to grant PSH. We work with a lot of clients to get that. The wait times for that stuff is 30 days to about 90, depending on your state. I would say that Florida and California do top to top times, but generally you can get it just over 30 days with all the administrative foot dragging they do. But you will not. Let's discuss this, because I'm assuming that most of you know a lot of things you may not know. Housing authorities are not the only place in America that issues vouchers that are federally funded, okay? Besides that, you could go over to a tax credit property, what is better known under subsection 42. You have section 811 properties, section 202 property. 811 is a person that is it's what we call a NED vouchers, non-elderly. And so section 42 properties are owned by private individuals, and they, in return for tax credits, will allocate, say there's 100 units, they'll allocate 40 units to those that may be seniors, veterans, or disabled. And so that's another avenue that does not require a voucher at all. It's subsidy. And then you have the continuum of care and housing programs, which could yield 1 of 3 vouchers. In the old days, and for the most part, the vast portion of Section 8 and dealing with public housing authorities, emergency housing vouchers were always issued by them. But through the pandemic, they've relegated that process now. The emergency housing voucher deal with people more that are almost homeless or imminently homeless, and that is now put through housing first and continuum of care programs, which has nothing to do with your local housing authority. You see, so there's lots of ways to get vouchers, and the vouchers can be issued for a variety of reasons, including politically. Okay, it can be issued by. It can be referred by the district attorneys, private hospitals, and other caseworkers, and so on. Okay, so we have to get out of our old way of thinking, what we learned back in the 1980s. The system that existed in the 1980s have changed about 8 different times. It's not even the same thing as what you remember Grandma using. Okay, doesn't work that way. Thank God, because those were some bigoted and difficult times for people. Tamara goes on to say, I'm looking to apply for Section 8, but I'm not sure how to go about it. Well, that's always, I would suggest to you that the first essential tool, if I'm saying your name right, anybody that I fail to get your names right, it's not to be offensive, but clearly I'm not the best with names, okay? So I will get as close as I can. So the first established step would be getting on your phone, probably. Most of you are not going to be a computer like guy like me with a desktop. I would suggest you get in on there and you put in Public Housing Authority. And let me just make this a little bit easier. For those of you that would like a list of every known housing authority in America that is searchable by state and also county, I'm going to give you that now, and that will absolve you of ever worrying about where you need to go and who you need to call. Just give me 2 seconds here, and I'm going to grab that list and I'm going to link it up in this live chat. That way, you guys have a complete and accurate list that's issued by the feds. No more digging around YouTube and no more digging around Google. All right, that link I just put in that live chat, that's every known housing authority in America. All right, moving on from there. So, the first process is contacting them or going to the website to determine whether or not they actually have a open waiting list. And if they do have an open waiting list, is it a lottery or are they going to base it on specific criteria like age, income, and so on? And that would be the beginning of how you would start. If you don't have years of your life to give, then it might be advisable, if you've given all best efforts, to work with somebody that actually knows, that's a consultant that actually understands the system and can navigate it probably at light speed compared to your own efforts. That would probably be able to, could potentially yield a voucher much quicker. All right, I'm gonna take a sip of coffee here. Got a dry mouth. All right. BCAT goes on to say, thank you for clarifying that. And then it goes on again to say, can PHVs be ported? Most vouchers in most cases can be ported. However, continuum of care vouchers cannot be ported. One can be ported, which is the EHV, emergency housing voucher. But unfortunately, rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing cannot be ported. A person with the acronym name of SR, can you apply for Section 8 in any state while being on a list in another state? Here's how you'd want to handle that, and from my experience, I would address no greater than 2 states at a time, okay? If you start going across more than 2 states, then you're likely to raise some red flags, definitely at HUD's regional office. Now, if you've exhausted the possibilities of every county in the state and you haven't heard from them in, say, 45 to 90 days, then I would say move on to a different state. Look, guys, you have to do what you got to do, but you don't want to do it at such a pace that you're going to actually create a functional problem and then have the HUD itself, the feds, identify you as a potential fraud. Okay. Michelle Jackson, yes, thank you for the information. Shook Shields, interesting name of the day. If I port my voucher, go down. That seems to be an incomplete question there, but could you ask that again? Mary Jones, when you get a voucher, can you port right away or do you have to live there for a year? Well, Mary Jones, I'm going to give you two answers to that. 70% of the time, they're going to want you to stay and complete a 12-month lease. 30% of the time, they're going to say, here's your voucher. We honestly don't care what you do with it. We're going to excuse portability, and then you may begin the billing and absorbing process. And let's talk about billing and absorbing today, because a lot of you ask about, can I port it, but don't know how to port. So let's talk about how to port. All right, let's say you've got this voucher. You're living in California and you've got a voucher in a cornfield in Iowa, a little bitty PHA. They say, hey, congratulations, you got a voucher. We don't care whether you move it or not. The first thing you want to do is contact a caseworker. Excuse me, I'm intending on, I would like to initiate portability. And I'd like to speak with the portability specialist if you have one. If there's no portability specialist for your public housing authority, then I'd like to speak with my caseworker, the person in charge of my voucher. Once you do that, then you would explain that to that person. If they agree, then what would happen is you would need to first open up Google, get you a map of the country, and figure out exactly which county and which state elsewhere that you want to go. Once you do that, then you need to do your Google search for the housing authority. So let's just say it's Orange. Let's just say that it's Tampa, Florida. then you would want to go in and then put in Tampa, Florida Housing Authority. That way, you're able to provide your caseworker or portability specialist with an actual way to request portability from another housing authority. Then you'd want to contact the forwarding housing authority and determine whether or not they're billing or absorbing. So we'll talk about that just for 2 seconds. Billing means that once you get that voucher to Tampa, Florida, you're considering doing that. Tampa, Florida's public housing authority may send a bill back to the state of California, or they may choose to say, you know what, bring your voucher here and we'll absorb you. And what absorbing means is they're not going to send the bill back to California, but they're going to say, go ahead and relinquish and cancel. You can go ahead and cancel your voucher. We're going to instantly give you one for our state, and it's good to go. Go start doing your housing search. That is the simpler answer. Now, if you want the more complicated answer, then of course that's a whole different video. Take another sip of coffee here while we go down memory lane and figure out all these different things. Strict Shields goes on, when you port your voucher to a different city, will the amount go up or down? Yes, of course. So every city clearly would, every zip code in America and the houses. So if you have a zip code 77077, and in that zip code, houses are renting for about $1,000, and then you enter a market like New York, and you're now in 98012, and that zip code is 100 homes or worth a value of 2,000 a month. That means when you move a voucher from one public housing authority area, county and state, to another one, then they would have to change. They would have to recalculate your rents to match the local market. So I know I crushed a few dreams. You can't drag one of those nice big juicy vouchers out of New York worth $5,000 and then drag it down to Jackson, Mississippi, where rents may be $400 or something. You see what I'm saying? So yes, I go up and down. Brian Guerreros, can an elderly person in Orlando, Florida, who's gotten a voucher recently, port it to another county? Well, the only way that there'd be 3 circumstances in which you could port if you just got that voucher and beginning to use it. The first would be is in many cases, like in Florida and other bigger states like Texas, they may group several different counties together. So you'd have county 1, 2, 3, and 4 with different names, and if they're collaborating, they're in collusion with each other, then the voucher would be good for all those different counties and housing authorities that are participating. Okay. The second would be that they don't object to any portability, that you could just simply move the voucher. And the third and final and most common answer would be that it would require you to complete a 12-month lease successfully and not violate any rules in your HAP contract. All right, JX, is Illinois/Chicago dependable, or will it take a while because the city's mass population? Out of all the big cities, when you think of New York and all the way down to, LA, Orange, and so on, Chicago has never been on my radar in all these years. Okay, in all these decades, Chicago's not been on my radar as a place that is particularly hard to get a voucher. In fact, Chicago very rarely makes the news about long waiting lists or problems. They may have shootings out there, but it's not. Out of all the places I can think, it's just Chicago and Illinois just don't come up on my radar as being particularly complicated for vouchers. BCAT, is an emergency housing voucher permanent or temporary? Permanent. Okay. Do they use the same score sheet as PHVs? No. So the 2 scoring metrics or assessment prioritization tools they use will change depending on how they're underwritten for each COC program in America. So every PHA and every COC program will have their own operations, policies, and procedures and prioritization tools. And the prioritization tool is the one that you're talking about. But the interesting thing about SP/DAT and the BOSS system, these 2 different systems they implement across the country, is even if you didn't relatively have their specific manual, the standard ones that you can find pretty easily, they're fairly accurate. You could actually score high enough without actually having to have the specific one in most cases to be able to get where you need to go. Okay. Tears with a Z, lots of Z's. The county I put it to is billing. Good. And then on again, you say that the voucher amounts go up or down, but you still pay the same 30%. Yes. So utilizing vouchers and subsidies, in the program, 30% of your income never changes. There's nothing that's fundamentally really going to change that percentage unless you have some type of special use voucher where maybe you're in a HUD bash program where they may be covering higher than that rate, but it would be fairly uncommon. Sheba Baby says, "What can I do if my caseworker let my voucher expire and no one is responding to me?" Well, I would say to you that if nobody's responding, then you need to change the channels in which you communicate with housing authorities because they're notorious for not answering phones and so on. I would suggest to you that you're not filing, like literally filing, you draw up a complaint on ordinary paper or Excel or whatever format you want to, and you send that with a tracking number. So if you want to compel a public housing authority to reply to your complaint or otherwise, I would suggest that you go through official channels. The first would be attempting to make the complaint to the very people that have caused you the problem, but the most effective way would be sending a certified letter, meaning with a tracking number, uh, requesting that there be a hearing or arbitration. If they don't want to listen to them, then you have plenty of law firms online. I'm not suggesting you go buy a $300 an hour lawyer, go sit in his office, but you've got lots of these lawyer programs. You pay $30 a month, and that lawyer can cut a letterhead. In other words, his law firm is inquiring and filing that complaint. That'll get their attention pretty quickly, okay? Because at that point, they're going to realize that you're probably fully apprised of your rights, okay? And once they realize that, they tend to cooperate a lot more. Uh, the final uh, the final solution could be speaking with a housing advocate, which in essence is an attorney, though be it they're new, that could actually help you file that complaint. Now, you can also move that up to the Department of Justice, so DOJ, and then in some cases you can file certain complaints with FHEO, which is Fair Housing, and I believe that would be the end of the line. BCAT goes, "Can you post the EHV score sheet?" Well, that'd be impossible. It's 100 pages, so I can give you I can link you out to Espadad if you'd like, and you can use that as a metric to help you with scoring. Crystal B, how long after being matched to PSH do you get a voucher? Administratively speaking, depending on how slow or crazy they are and how big the city is and blah, 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 I would suggest to you that most are resolved between 30 and 90 days, okay? If we didn't have bureaucracy and slip slop, if their work shoes weren't filled with concrete, then likely a lot of this stuff can be done in just a week or two. But has the world ever worked that way when it comes to federal funds, right? We don't ever get anything done that quick because that's just how the system is. I count myself fortunate as a consultant to be able to double the speed of what's already slow. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with y'all. I know that we didn't get to get in depth as much as we can, but part of my job is to answer questions for people. And then that greatly reduces the amount of time I actually have to meet the topic of the video. But there's good news. Clearly, I either have a loose screw or I make a lot of videos. And so, since we're at or above 800 videos, I'm pretty sure at some point I've answered every known question in Section 8. And if I haven't, then I'm probably getting very close. Tamara goes, "Can you be reached by email?" Well, I would say that the only two logical ways that I can be reached is through these two links. And I don't publish emails and phone numbers in YouTube because everybody that's in China and Russia that's selling Viagra and blow up dolls would just love that I publish everything. That way they can call and text at 3, 4 in the morning, and then I would get all these 50% off blow up dolls. I don't want them. And we had a big problem with that in this channel at one point, and now that I've gotten rid of those nuts, I don't want them back. So I'm going to give you linkage to our company, and then you'll arrive at that phone number if you look carefully enough. Let me get that for you real quick. And I think I've gotten it. And now let's see if I can get that information to you. All right, guys. So take note of this links. These are for consultations, our website, and everything else kind of expands from there if you want to know more, okay? Also, I would like to go ahead and put up the demographical information that a lot of you might find very useful. And this page, if I can get it real quick, I'm going to give you the wait times for every city in America, including every state, and all the demographical information you're going to need to be able to target the very shortest list. And as far as I know, this has never been issued. So I think you'll find it extremely useful. That link is coming now. Look, there's a lot of information there. I would sit down with a cup of coffee and read through the whole thing. You're going to find some very valuable. Like this thing was written, they did something that our office could never do. They contacted every PHA in America. They literally figured out the exact wait times. Since this is issued by the feds, not even the housing authority itself can lie to you and say that it's different. That'd be like saying, or you're standing by the president and saying that he's a liar. This is issued by the FUD, so they can't deny what's already there. You see my point? And besides that, having the exact wait times does help big time. And I think we know why, for those of you that have already figured it out. So, all right, guys, I'm going to wrap this up. And I think today is Thursday. Sunday, we're going to make a little bit more interesting video that's not in such monotone. You do realize I work a lot of hours, so I'm a little bit tired. But Sunday, I'll be spicy and ready to go, and we're going to have a lot of fun with that video as compared to this one. I just really wanted y'all to have this information, okay? You need every cut, you need every edge that you can possibly get to get vouchers and housing these days. And for those of you that are interested in future vouchers, or portability and moving your vouchers, we will be putting up a dramatic number of homes that will be open to lease specifically for people with Section H vouchers. It makes little difference if you contact me from Puerto Rico and you say, Jay, we're going to be moving this voucher right to the same neighborhood where you're leasing up 100 homes, then we will be reviewing that application, okay? And that's going to give you an advantage because I do care whether or not you guys actually get these vouchers. And this is a chance that for a lot of you that live in cities where there's virtually no housing available, this is a good chance for you. All right, try to enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you Sunday. Bye for now.